give you Liam Warren.
All right, hi. Thank you all for coming today. This is my presentation on my research on the impact of digital recording. So I'm just going to start off by explaining why I was so interested in this topic. So I started off around 8th grade or freshman year really starting to listen in depth to different genres of music like jazz, rock, hip-hop, blues. And I really started to focus on sort of the instrumentation and production that the music had to offer. So I'd say around last year when I heard about this program of Capstone, I decided like this is what I wanted to study. I wanted to study how music is made now and how it's changed over time. So I decided to study the impact that musical recording has on how we listen to music and how we find new music on a day-to-day basis and how it's changed over time. And so what I did with that in some of my free time is that I went to a recording studio down at the West Suburban YMCA and just took some songs that I had written years ago, took some covers, and I decided to just record them and see how that whole process goes and try to learn something about how basically musical recording happens. So I'm going to start off by giving a brief background and history on how music recording has evolved over time. So this here is an analog sine wave, and so in 1877, Thomas Edison created the phonograph machine, and what that did was it picked up vibrations of sound waves, and with a pin scratching on a piece of tin foil, it created this sine wave here, and that's what a single tone sound looks like when the vibrations are being picked up. And analog recording was the only way that music was recorded over time. Until around the early 1980s. And so analog recording is interesting because it picks up all the vibrations that a microphone is picking up, and basically a lot of noises can be heard at once despite in addition to the actual music being played. So around the early 1980s, advances in technology brought up digital technology. And so in the music industry, sound engineers decided to take that original analog sound wave and transport it into a digital, analog to digital converter, which then assigned each sound wave an individual binary number, so a 0 or a 1. And that basically computerized the sound wave to be edited and worked with on a computer interface. And so to produce that sound back into an actual thing we can hear, those digital signals are put through a digital to analog converter, which then produces the original sound that the analog signal was in the beginning. But now the fidelity is increased, which means a lot of the sort of scratching and like different noises you hear in a vinyl record were eliminated, and the sound sounded a lot more clear and it was a lot different. So in the 80s, with all this digitization of music, we then were brought upon with the compact disc. And what that did was it stored that digital information and compressed it into a usable interface on a disc. And what that did was a lot of music could be stored in very small areas that we could listen to in the form of, and the music was stored in bytes, which is just another way to talk about how digital signals are stored. And so from there, we then moved into the MP3 player, which further compressed those same digital signals into easily transportable and shareable files that can go all around the internet. And that's where we are today in the new era of music sharing, which I will touch upon later. And so this picture here on my slide is what the digital software Pro Tools looks like. And Pro Tools was created in 1989 by an electrical engineering major named Evan Brooks. And what it does is it's a very innovative way to edit music on a computer. But it wasn't really the industry standard it is today until 1997, when the same company that Evan Brooks founded sort of increased the speed it could be used, and then from then on, Pro Tools could be used on any type of computer or laptop, and basically became the industry standard because there was nothing more versatile and impressive than it. So I'm just going to show two clips that I showed to like a focus group in the library a few months ago. It's two versions of the same song. One was the original analog version, and the other version was the digitized version, and I'm just going to show the differences. All right, so that's the original analog version, which was recorded for vinyl in 1979. And this is the remastered version from 2013. All right, so I know it's a little hard to hear in here, but when I took people out of the library and told them to listen to the two differences, they noticed that in the redigitized version, it sounded a little bit clearer, and sort of the scratching noises and sort of fuzzy sounds that I talked about earlier in analog recording were sort of eliminated in the new redigitized version. And they said that they could hear each individual instrument a lot better as individual pieces instead of just one big song altogether. And I think that's very interesting because a lot can be done in the editing realm of digital technology. So the editing process from analog recording versus digital recording is very different. So on analog recording, the music is recorded through a reel of tape, which can be extremely long. And the only way to really edit pieces out of it is to cut them with actual scissors and paste them in different parts of the song. And that's a very long and expensive process. An 8-track reel of tape to buy if you're basically recording your own music is around $3,000, which is fairly expensive for new and up-and-coming musicians. And so the only way to really edit that is to be a trained professional, someone who knows how to cut the pieces correctly and paste them in different spots of the song to create a different feel of the song. So with digital editing on an interface like Pro Tools, it's very versatile, and you can take individual pieces from each part of the song and put them in different spots. I remember when I was in the studio and working with the audio engineer there, he was teaching me how you could take an individual part of one song, like a chord or a note, copy and paste it with just the computer keyboard and take it and put it in a different part of the song, just like that. And I thought it was really amazing that all of that could happen just on a computer. And really, like it says here, nothing is very impossible when you're editing on a digital interface. It's very usable once you get the hang of it a few times. And the cost to download the highest upgrade of Pro Tools is around $700, but that's always going to be on your computer. And if you're a new musician, it would be very useful to have if you're sort of editing your own music and going different places to show your music. So despite digital recording and analog recording having pretty drastic differences in how you edit, a recurring theme I've found through my research and my own experiences is that practice makes perfect. Well-rehearsed music will make either style of recording useful in different ways. And so what that means is that you want to be very well-rehearsed when you're going to the studio, because you don't want to get there and have a mediocre performance that might not impact you, or you might not really like your first take, and you might keep taking takes and takes of the same song until you get it right. I went into the studio expecting it to be fairly easy, but when I got there, I had songs I wrote maybe like sophomore year or something that I decided, oh, there are chords here on the paper, maybe I just want to play them. But it was a lot harder than that. It's very easy for different notes to go out of tune when you're singing in the song, and I ended up having to do very many takes to get the same song. And even though we were editing with Pro Tools, it just makes everyone's life easier when the original take is well rehearsed and on point, because it just makes the whole editing process take less time. And so an interesting story I heard from Jack White, who is the guitarist of the White Stripes. This is his album cover right here of Lazaretto. He is very unique in today's day and age because he records in an all-analog studio, which means it's difficult for him to edit his own music. However, he knows, he's a professional, and he knows that well-rehearsed and practiced music really is the best way to go, because you can just take one take of the song and then keep going with the rest of the music he's recording. And I think that's very important to remember, because you don't want to just go into the studio and, like I said before, record a mediocre take, because it just wastes time that you might need when you're recording other songs. Another story I heard from a famous producer named Brian Eno, who's recorded and produced for different bands in the 70s and 80s. He's talked about a story when he went to West Africa to help record for a local band there, and they just had very basic technology, like a very old microphone and very old amplifiers, but they were so well rehearsed and in tune with each other that they only needed one take to record each song. And he was very impressed, because he said that technology didn't need to have any really value here, because they were just so well rehearsed. So digital technology impacts us not just in the recording world, but also in how we listen to music. So through my research, I started finding out that through MP3s, which I touched up on earlier, that music sharing and music streaming have now become the most very important in how we listen to music nowadays. And so what that means is that you can take a file that you made on Pro Tools and send it to different streaming websites like Spotify, which is the logo right there, SoundCloud, Pandora, or iTunes, for people to really just, all you have to do is just click on it and listen to the song. And it's a very unique way to listen to music now. A lot of it's for free too. And so what that means is that if artists can now do a lot of this themselves, record labels and record studios, recording studios, are now really declining in importance, because they just don't have much value in just sitting down and recording an entire album anymore, because artists can really do it themselves. And so after researching this, I definitely noticed that I do this myself. I go on social media like Facebook or different websites, music websites, to find new music. And a lot of the music we share with our friends is through social media, whether it's sending links or just recommending people to go to a certain website and listen to that music. And I think that is very interesting now. And so I decided to conduct a survey to high school and college age students around the area. And these are my results. So I asked 5 pretty important questions.